any way that I can. And I'm really pumped to see what the future holds.
So then Nassib penned this note. He said, "I truly love my life, and I cannot understand why I have been blessed so much. I feel especially thankful to have had so much support with many who came before and many even now. I stand on the shoulders of giants, incredible people who paved the way for me to have this opportunity. I do not know all the history behind our courageous LGBTQ community, but I am eager to learn and to help continue the fight for equality and acceptance." I mean, guys, I read this. I got to believe that young man this morning is waking up with an incredible weight lifted off his shoulders. That was not an easy thing to do, not for anyone, but certainly for someone in the NFL where the environment hasn't always been welcoming, as we all know. Nick, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to this?
Well, I think, Jenna, you alluded to it somewhat in the open, which is the fact that this is news, but not stop down everything. It breaks through to CNN and it's the leads the show. Not that level of news shows the progress we've made. And the thing with progress is at times it can feel like we are not moving anywhere. And sometimes, as it does right now in certain areas, it can feel like we are actually moving backwards. But then when it comes, it can come really fast. So, like, listen, I'm a child of the 90s. So I grew up in not only the don't ask, don't tell era, and that was considered like the liberal policy, but also when you tried to talk about gay rights, the word everybody used was tolerance, which now you look back on it, you're like, well, you tolerate something you don't like, but you can deal with. And now the language has moved to acceptance. And in the NFL in particular, I just this morning did a Google News search, and I separated it in 5-year and 10-year increments. In 2001, so 20 years ago, Jeremy Shockey went on Howard Stern's show and was asked about gay players in the NFL. And he said, quote, "I don't know. I don't like to think about it. I hope not. If there was a gay guy on my college team, I wouldn't have stood for it." And then he did the typical ignorant shower stuff. That was 20 years ago. 15 years ago, in 2006, when Esera Tualo came out after his career, he talked about how he feared that he would have been injured by a teammate had they known it. And in the article I read, an anonymous current NFL player in 2006 said, if someone came out today, he wouldn't be in the game Sunday. And so it's like, okay, how far are we moving? But then in 2011, just 5 years later, as part of the new collective bargaining agreement, the NFL added, hadn't been there before, sexual orientation as one of its protected classes. And then a few years later, Michael Sam came out, and while he didn't really have a true active NFL career, it was a massive step. And now Carl Nassib can come out, and I feel like you are going to have to search long and far for someone who writes the, well, how's this going to play in the locker room take? Because I think the locker room has spoken that it's going to play just fine. And Wilds, it reminds me of the journey interracial marriage took, which right now people won't believe me, but I promise it's true. In 1990, 30 years ago, 63% of non-black Americans said they would have a huge issue with a family member marrying a black person. That number is now less than 10%. In 30 years, you went from 2/3 of the country feeling one way to now less than 1 in 10 people feeling that way. And so it can feel in the moment, I think, Wilds, like the struggle is everlasting, and to a degree it is, and that no progress is made. But then when you see it, and it's like Carl Nassib comes out, and it's a story, but it's not the biggest story in the world, I think speaks to where we are at right now in a really positive way.
Yeah, I thought yesterday was a day of hope and optimism and love, and I think Carl mentioned it in his Instagram post that he stands on the shoulders of giants. And we know there were scores of retired players who came out after their playing days were over. We knew that there are dozens of college players that played and were out openly. And we know specifically, you mentioned it, Nick, Michael Sam. I think Michael Sam is owed a debt of gratitude for sort of paving the way most recently to allow for a sort of nonchalance Instagram post that I found really refreshing. It's like, hey, everybody, I'm in Westchester. I'm just holding my phone. Here's my announcement. Michael Sam's announcement was much more formal. And I think a little bit of Carl's nonchalance, which is optimistic, is we owe a thanks to Michael Sam. And I want to show what Michael Sam wrote on his Twitter in regards to Carl's donation to the Trevor Project. Carl Nassib, thank you for owning your truth and especially your donation to the Trevor Project. LGBTQ people are more likely to commit suicide than heterosexuals. I hope and pray people will take note of this. Thank you again, Carl, and look forward to seeing you play on the field. To anyone, young or old, black or white, straight or gay, who are being bullied by others, please know this. I stand with you in your time of need, in your hour of triumph. I am your friend and your brother. Even though I may never see you, hug you, or even kiss you, I love you. Jenna, I thought yesterday was Carl's day, but Michael Sam did an excellent job as well, and I felt like his words were powerful as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Here's why Carl Nassib's announcement resonated with me. So 10 years ago, for those of you who don't know, I made a similar announcement on national TV. I came out as well. And I will forever remember the words that I used. I remember the fear and the anxiety I had and just the nerves that were right there right before I said the words. And then once I said it, it was like that. And it was like relief and joy and this incredible weight that was just lifted off my shoulders. Because however it was going to be received, I felt like the hard part was over, right? It was just out there. I also spent 13 years working in NFL locker rooms, obviously nowhere near as connected as Brandon was to the inner workings of what goes on in there. But in my opinion, I will tell you this, those NFL locker rooms at the time never felt like an environment welcoming of an announcement like this back then. So look how far we've come today. What Carl did yesterday matters. If an announcement from a guy in the NFL can affect even one person who's struggling to live his or her true life, one person who's scared or nervous or feels trapped or lost. I mean, I've probably felt a part of that before I, sat down that morning to make my announcement. If one person can make someone feel a little more found or okay or safe, then it was worth it. And it wasn't, not just for Carl and not just for me and not just for the NFL, but it's also for the kid out there who says if a guy in the NFL can be his true self, then I can too. And what's stopping me from being able to too? To Nick's point, to yours point, Kevin Wilde's, I think what Carl did yesterday was great. I feel confident saying I'm proud of him as someone who did the same thing 10 years ago. Nick, you wanted to jump in?
No, I think your point, Jenna, is a brilliant one and one that shouldn't be lost, which is we talk, Jenna, in sports all the time about how you have a Dirk Nowitzki comes over from Europe, and all of a sudden there are a bunch of young kids who are like, oh, I could go to the NBA like he did. You know what I mean? That hadn't seen their avatar in pro sports. And we've had gay people come out after their career. We had Michael Sam come out and not actually get a full career. But now there will be, Jenna, gay kids that are able to watch the NFL and say, oh, there maybe is a place for me. And it's why what you did a decade ago was, and people similar to you that did something like that are in the public eye, to make it feel like it's more of an opening space for young people that need to see their avatars elsewhere. And so I don't know if that was part of your math on why you did it, when you did it, and how you did it, but people such as yourself deserve a tremendous debt of gratitude because it opens the door for young people who are struggling so much, saying, okay, what is my place in this world, to see public-facing people own it. The way you did, the way Carl did in a very different field. I just think it's a really good point. I think it's really important and shouldn't be lost on people, Jenna.
Well said. Progress was definitely made yesterday. I'm glad Carl was able to do that. All right, we are going to take a turn, take a break, and talk